Yo, what's good everyone? Wesley Paul here, back once again, and today is the second video in the series where we are looking at creating our very own MPC expansion. In the first video, we looked at creating drum programs and drum kits to add into our expansion, and in today's video, we're looking at creating our very own key groups, and we're going to do that using Auto Sampler. And we're also going to look at adding one-shots into this as well. So, if you look over in the software here, I've already got a plugin loaded up. I've got my analog lab and I have a piano sound. And what we're going to do is auto sample that piano sound. So we go over to menu, we go to tools, and then we go to auto sampler. And this is the stuff here now we need to change to make it how we want it to be. So min note, max note. So it works better if you've already got a MIDI keyboard, because then you can just play and then you can find the lowest note that you would realistically go to if you was to play whatever instrument you're about to auto sample. So I've set mine at C1 and C5. I like to have a lot of range when when it's a piano sound. So C1 to C5 is cool, but certain instruments might not need that much of a range. You might be cool with getting away with just going between C2 and C4. It all just depends on what you are auto sampling. Where you've got note stride, and see this is set on 6. So what happens is this is sort of the intervals between the notes that it's sampling, if that makes sense. So first of all, like just say it was going to start on this C. Whereas on note stride 6, what it will do is it will sample that C, and then it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then this F sharp will be the next one that it samples. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it will just do every 6. And the notes in between that it hasn't sampled, it sort of pitches it to the correct tone rather than sampling it, individually. So if you was to bring that down to 1, for example, then it's going to sample every single note. And so you would think that if you're sampling each note individually, it's going to sound a lot better than if you're sort of only sampling a few and pitching it. But to be fair, you have to play around with it. I find staying around 5 is okay. But it all depends on what you're sampling. Sometimes you do need to go down to that 1 if you want that really good quality. But I'm going to show you some results soon. With the layer, this is like how many, it's pretty self-explanatory. How many layers do you want for that sound? Again, I do find with stuff like pianos, having 4 layers, I kind of like having 4 layers. Again, if it was like a synth or even certain brass instruments, sometimes 1 layer is sufficient. Yeah, you just need that 1 layer. You don't need to layer it. But on a piano sound, I do like to layer it. On note length, that's how long. So when you play just say if you was playing a note, yeah, how long until it just stops? Yeah, so on a piano sound, you might play a chord and hold it for a bit, and you don't want it to cut off too soon. So I think 5 to 6 seconds is a bit of a sweet spot for me. With the tail, I played around with it. This doesn't always give me the desired result. So leaving it around 3 is okay. Okay, and then where you got your name, yeah, this is what it's going to name it once you've auto-sampled it. So in the last video, we spoke about naming things correctly, and it's no different here. If you want the filtering system to work, you have to follow the naming convention. So what you should do is type in, let's see if I can get this to work. Yeah, so INST, and then you want to do dash, and then we're not going, it's not a genre, it's not genre specific. So we type in piano, and then dash, and then we're going to type in, I don't know, Art 01. Yeah, and we just leave it like that. When it comes to enable looping, so sets or forwards. So what that is once it will play this, and then rather than it just stopping abruptly, it's gonna play it again. Yeah, to extend it. But what would happen is if you do it like that, they don't all loop at the same time. So if you leave that on enable looping forward, for example, and on a piano sound like this, when you play that, what's gonna happen is it's gonna do this little arpeggiation sound, which sometimes it sounds good, but sometimes you're not gonna want that all the time. Yeah. So what I tend to do now is just turn that off. There is different ones. You can alternate or reverse it, but for me, especially on piano sounds, I just turn that off. But you can play around with that because if you sort of work on the technique on that, what you can do is just shorten the length and just have it looping, and it will make the file a lot. It will take up less memory. Yeah, it will be a smaller file. Okay, and you got the session duration here. So where it's set there, that's how long it's going to take to render this down. So that's quite long. Yeah, everything we've done up here affects how long this is. So let's start with note stride. You see, I've got that on one. The higher I go, say if I put that on 6, yeah, you see that session duration dropped dramatically. Yeah, you see when you've got the layers. So what happens is, remember I said it samples like the notes, right? If you've got 4 layers, so when it does like C, for example, it's gonna have to do it 4 times. So the more layers you've got, the more it has to sample. So if you was to take that off, look how quick that's got now compared to what it was before. Also, note length, the longer it is, you can see the seconds going up. The shorter it is, the quicker it is. Yeah, and it's the same with the tail, no different. Yeah, so all of these things affect, like, so when you've got it on note stride 1 and 4 layers, yeah, and if your note's quite long, it's gonna take you absolutely ages to make that key group. And sometimes you shouldn't really let that stop you. Like, you just do what you need to do, but it has to be worth it, to be fair. So once you've done all of that and you've got that right and you've got this exactly how you want it, you're gonna press do it, and then it's gonna start sampling the notes. I'm not gonna do that now because I've already done it and it does take a while. So this, I'll play you the loop that I've made. Let's play that. So this is the original. And then I've got I'll show you ones that I did. So this one, it's called Stride 5. So I think the note length was on about 5 as well. I think the tail was about 5, 4 layers, and this is on Stride 5, and you can hear how it turned out. So as you can hear, it doesn't exactly sound like the original. This is Stride 1, tail 5. So it does sound better, but again, it doesn't quite sound like the original. If you go original, Stride 5, Stride 1. Yeah. So it's not perfect. And what I find is whenever you use auto sampler, there's always some extra editing that you have to do to get it to sound better. It's normally messing around with the ADSR, so you have to go to program edit and mess around with this stuff over here to make it sound a bit better. And or sometimes just adding reverb. So if you put the reverb on, it sounds a lot better. Makes a world of difference when you put the reverb on there. What you can do though is before you auto sample it, you can put some effects on here. If you had effects and then auto sample it, it should auto sample it with those effects applied. But what I found is when on the original, I did put some effects on here. I messed around with the effects here, but I don't think it added it when I auto sampled it. I can't really hear it, but when you put the effects on there, it should auto sample it with those effects on. Let's look at a one shot. So if we come over here, this is a one shot sound. Okay, and it is velocity sensitive. And what I did is I auto sampled this. Okay, but what I did is I did put some effects on there before I auto sampled it. So let me just play this. And then I'm going to play the one that I auto sampled. It's not playing the one I auto sampled, is it? That's the one. So this is the one I auto sampled. That's not the one I wanted. Yeah. So I can hear the effects on the one that I did auto sample. Very faintly though. It's not as much as when I was before I auto sampled it. But I do think the auto sampled one for the one shot did come out better, to be honest. And you might be thinking, why would you auto sample the one shot? I mean, if the one shot goes across the crease and it works, why do you need to auto sample it? You don't really. If it sounds good how it is, you can leave it. But even if you wanted to add that to your expansion, you could just leave it as a one shot and save that program and then just add that program. So when you open it up as a key group, it will just open up the one shot. Or if you wanted to do a bit of sound design and take a one shot and add some effects to it to make it better, and then auto sample it, you could do that as well. There's also a lot of good free one shot kits out there. People give those away, and it's easier to get those than to get certain plugins or other presets. Just do a Google search for some one shots. There's a lot of good ones out there. One thing very important to show you as well, naming your stuff, all right? So remember, so if I want to save this now, it's called Stride 5, and I don't want it to be called Stride 5, all right? Let me come back over here as well. So even all of the samples attached to it here, they're called Stride 5. But then if I was to save that program now, it wouldn't work in the whole filtering thing. So INST for instrument dash piano dash let's just call this Art 02 this time. Yeah. But I've changed that, but these still say Stride. And you don't want that. Yeah. But going and individually renaming all of those will take a long time. So what you do is go to menu, then you go to edit, you're gonna go to program, and then you're gonna go to tidy key group sample names. Now have a look to see what happens to the names once I do that. See, it changed all of them now to match the name of the program. Yeah, so if you ever don't name it properly, if you want to change the name or whatever, just change that tidy key group names and it will change that there. Now, once you've done that and you've made as many key groups programs as you want, then you need to save them, right? So what I've done is I put a different program, so just like the last video, a different program on each track, and then you need to save all of your programs. So go to File, Save All Programs, and then you're going to save that into the place where we put our expansion. And then we're going to save that in there. And then what we also need to do is save the sequence. We could just save one. We'd have to save because it's the same sequence across all of them. And then what you also need to do is just like the last video, you need to export the audio and put that for your previews. Yeah, when it just decides to finish. It's taking its time there. There was a lot of samples in there. That's why it's taking its time. So imagine if you did Note Stride 1, which I think I did. I think that's why it's taking so long. I did Note Stride 1 across quite a bit of a register. So now it's going to take ages because it's saving all of those individually and they're all WAVs. So that's what I meant by it's going to be a big file. Imagine if you did that with like 10 different pianos, Note Stride 1. That is going to take up a lot of space. Yeah. So then now you go to File, you're going to go to Export, you're going to go to Audio Mixdown, going to take that down. Let's make that MP3 now. And then we're going to go to Separate Programs. We're going to go to Export. We're going to go back to our dedicated folder. We're going to go into Previews. We're going to save that in there. And then just like in the last video, you need to go back into that folder and change the name. So you're gonna have to go and find the program name and copy the program name onto the preview name and make sure they match 100%. Okay, just like we did in the last video, or the preview will not work. And I think that is it for this video. So I'm gonna end there and say, take care. Peace out. See you at the next one.